She's 35 now, but Cordelia Jonathan.
I thought she was 30. She looks 30.
Cordelia Jonathan, or as she was known at the time, Cordelia Gummer, hasn't really talked about the incident ever.
Gummer?
Cordelia Gummer.
One who gums.
Yeah. Hasn't really ever talked about the incident. I mean, after it happened, she did pretty normal things. Normal for the daughter of a UK Conservative Party grandee.
Do we want to speculate?
Look, I'm not speculating on that at the moment. She went to school at St Mary's Roman Catholic boarding school for girls in Ascot.
Obviously.
Ascot sounds very,
That's racing and alternatives to neckties.
It is. Then she went on to study economics at Edinburgh University and in Barcelona. Mm-hmm. She graduated. She took a job in London working for a firm of stockbrokers. Mm-hmm. She's that kind of woman. She went to society events.
Of course, she's the daughter of a Conservative grandee.
She is.
She has to go whether she wants to or not.
She loves Conservative Party sports, hockey, tennis, sailing, and equestrians.
Conservative Party sports.
They are Conservative Party sports.
Hockey, sailing, tennis, equestrian.
They really are. I mean, they're not bad things. Sailing is a nice thing to do.
Depends what you're sailing.
Horses are a nice thing to do. And
I've never done a horse, but depends what you're doing with the horse too. Like, are you doing the equestrians where you've got to make it walk sideways and balance on its hind legs, or are you just riding through the bush?
I don't quite have details how far she went into each of these things, but in her late 20s, she quit stockbroking and took a job as a maths and English tutor for wealthy families in London.
Wow.
32, she got married, and according to everything I can see, she seems happy and normal.
Sure. I don't want to ruin the surprise, but that sounds ominous.
No. Well, okay, yes. There is the normal Conservative Party family financial scandal, where the company that she and her brothers and sisters, Felix, Lenora, Benedict, are the directors of.
Oh, they're such conservative names too.
They are, yeah.
Felix,
Cordelia, Felix, Lenora, and Benedict. So their company called Sancroft, it's been accused of receiving a whole bunch of payments from green businesses, and their dad is like the boss of the UK Climate Change Committee. So there's a kickback scandal, but this is the Conservative Party.
That's just politics, man.
Well, it's just Conservative parties.
Cost of doing business.
We got to have a couple of little scandals to get by.
Yeah, otherwise they get bored.
But as much as people have badgered her throughout her whole life, she's never really talked about the incident. And you know what? I'm with her. What's to say?
Hashtag Will's with her.
Welcome to the Wholesome Show. Science stories for people who sit up the back of the thing that they're in.
Yeah, and don't have to ask questions because we'll do it for them.
That's what we're here. Story and questions.
Yep.
I'm Will Grant.
I'm Dr. Roderick Griffin. Very conservative. Lamberts.
You're very conservative.
I've always been characterised that way.
I don't think you are, but anyway.
I say to people, three things. The first three things to come to mind, I'm going to put it on my CV, and they go, well, one, obviously conservative, and the next two are kind of, they vary.
Loves equestrians.
Oh, that's true.
The Wholesome Show is brought to you by the Australian National Centre for the Public Awareness of Science.
And conservative sports.
Definitely.
Because we are a civilised people.
Hey, listener, just a quick ad for those of you who are in Australia's nation's capital, Canberra. This week coming up, we got live shows. Live shows? What the hell is that? Say all of the people that are living in lockdown.
Dates, though.
Yeah, no, I'll tell them
the dates. Are you going to say dates? I will say dates. You're good at this. I'll get out of your way. I'm out of your way.
Yeah, I will get there. If you're listening to this when it is roughly live, then coming up on both the 15th of August and like the 21st of August.
I'm pretty confident that's those dates.
Yeah. Pretty confident. You can check our Twitter for the written down version of this. We got live shows. So, we're doing this in front of a live audience with beers and stuff like that. So,
one of them has beers and the other one I'm not sure yet. It may be only we have beers, so I'm covered. But I don't know if the audience has beers. We're in negotiation. But the upside is the one that may not have beers doesn't cost money. The one that You can get beers, cost a little bit of money.
But you don't get a free beer with that.
No, you don't get beer. We don't give beer away.
No.
What are we, 100 airs?
We love you, listener.
Subscribe to our Patreon. Our target is $4.5 billion.
We really don't have a Patreon.
No, but $4.5 billion. I can give you my bank account details.
That's not a Patreon.
Let's go.
My bank account details are not a Patreon.
I'll say that to my students. First tutorial, I'm handing around a roll for them to write their name down. I was like, give me your name, university ID, bank account details, and PIN. And most understood I was joking, but a couple I don't think did.
Did you? Are you saying you actually said? Yeah, okay.
I actually said. Of course, I actually said it.
Oh my god.
Hello, have we met?
All right, back to not Cordelia.
Not Cordelia.
Not Cordelia. This one starts with a policy. Actually, a couple of policies. So, in the Second World War and the decades afterwards, the British government got a little bit panicked. They got a little bit panicked about food supplies.
They panicked after the war.
Well, yes.
I feel like that would have been more useful earlier.
No, I'm not saying that. Okay, they were panicked in the war and after the war about food supplies.
Well, they had practice, I suppose.
Yeah. There was blockades and things.
Food's important.
And they lost their whole empire.
A lot of people eat.
Yeah, they do. And they took the decision that they can't rely on their colonies around the rest of the world to feed them. And so instead, they were going to foster agricultural self-sufficiency.
Interesting. We had an empire.
Yeah.
Now we're going to work out how
to feed ourselves.
How do you boil an egg?
We're going to grow a garden.
We used to go to India
Plant a garden. Plant a
Hey, Sri Lanka.
No, the growing. But they were actually in this pretty successful. I don't have the details of all different foodstuffs. I don't know if they became self-sufficient on eggs or cabbage or carrots or anything like that. But I do know
taro.
I do know cows. Because by the 1980s, and well, actually probably 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, the British were pretty successful in getting self-sufficiency with the cow-related products. So by the 1980s, they were 97% self-sufficient on beef and veal, which are the cow meats.
Don't veal.
No, don't.
Don't veal.
Spoiler alert, some other things in this story not to do.
And I'm happy to listen, and I'll talk about it till the cows come home.
Oy,
I'll be here all week, but don't veal.
100% self-sufficient in milk and 70% self-sufficient on butter and cheese.
So
I don't know.
I believe they're related.
I don't know. Maybe they just eat more butter than they eat milk. I don't know.
It's a conundrum. If only Alan Turing was still alive.
It really is a riddle. It's a riddle.
Wrapped in an enigma. All right.
You need some butter-only cows or something like that.
But I suppose you can make cheese out of non-cow milk. Anteater, human, anything else.
You can, but not a lot. And you can make milk out of non-cow.
Bullshit. Sheep. Lots of sheep-based milk.
I remember. Not the story for this one. Not the story for this one. I got a book on the shelf up here. It's a great discussion. It's like a molecular gastronomy Bible. Like it goes into the full food chemistry. It is so wild. It is so wild. Anyway, it had this nice little table in there that says the fat content of different milks of mammal species.
Camel.
Well, camel's an easy one. I don't know the numbers. But it had like
whale.
Dairy cow. Let's say dairy cow is 4%. Okay. Camel. Don't quote me on these numbers. 6%. Yeah, killer whale is the highest fat content.
109%.
It's like I'm like, who was milking these killer whales?
What would it like? I would eat killer whale cheese. I'm on record right now. I too
would absolutely. So, listener, if you happen to have some killer whale cheese,
or know a guy who knows a guy,
absolutely, we would bring you on and pay you hundreds of $100 to do it.
$100. That's 1,000, and we're not. That's 10,000.
The increase in the cattle industry output was achieved in a number of ways.
So we're talking 80s where it was really going crazy?
Let's say really that after the war, it's a period between after the Second World War, so from 1945 through to a period when it didn't anymore.
It went really well till it stopped going well.
It went really well till it stopped going well.
I've been involved in those enterprises.
This is absolutely the story of a thing that went really well until it stopped going well.
Just stop. I already know this one now.
Okay, so the most important thing that they did was a combined breeding and feeding program, which produced cows, that's the breeding, with genetic capability to give higher milk yields if fed high protein. Breeding and feeding. So first they had to make cows that liked protein, and then they
get it in them.
Then they had to get it in them.
Okay.
Also at the same time, well, not at the same time, but in the later end of this, Margaret Thatcher's government abolished nutritional standards for school meals.
Of course she fucking did.
I know, like you really have to be draconian. Like, school meals, no more nutritional standards. Who says no?
That doesn't mean she's against nutrition. It's just she doesn't give a shit if there's any nutrition in them.
For school children.
Look, I may be the first person to say this. I think she might have been a bit of a monster.
It's a great form of monstrousness that says, okay, school children.
I don't care.
I don't care.
School children are nutrified as long as their tiny, tiny bellies are full. We expect a certain level of
sawdust
attrition.
Feed them sawdust.
Well, didn't they used to put was it wartime? They used to put chalk and shit in milk. They'd pad out milk with. We might have talked about this. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, chalk and other non-milk products. In fact, non-food products.
Just so long as it was white.
White and filled your belly.
Oh, God.
Can't blame Thatcher for that one. I think it was pre-Thatch.
Okay. I'll come to it. There's some bits of things in this later that are
So Thatcher said nutrition. That's for posh.
Okay. Yeah, nutrition is nutrition will be determined by the market, she said. That
just makes sense.
If parents want to have nutrition in their food, children's food,
speak to a bank.
Then either speak to a bank or vote in a government that wants that. And so you didn't, so therefore...
Oh, I know that one. You voted for us. Fuck off.
So that you get to go to
what we do.
School child jail.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, protein to feed the cows... the special protein-loving cows, could come from a variety of different sources. So it could come from plants, like soybean protein.
Yep.
Or it might be from animal sources, like fish meal, ground-up fish, or something that I just learned today, feather meal.
So, just feathers, but munched.
Yes.
What is this? Well, before I tell you, have another spoonful. And every time I hiccup...
It's absolutely a Looney Tunes cartoon where out pops a bunch of... Yes, they could be fed a whole bunch of ground-up feathers.
You love feathers though, right?
I do.
You've got a real passion.
I do not love feathers.
Yeah.
I think feathers are gross.
Luckily, you don't have many.
It could be from blood meal. Or most commonly...
So just blood, yeah.
Yeah, just blood. Just blood. Yeah. Remember, these are cows. And for those of you who are not...
Ravenous meat eaters.
Not meat eaters.
No.
Just to specify from the beginning, cows, they be eating the grass. And that's it.
Yeah, and grass is renowned for the amount of protein in it.
Yeah,
This is what I don't know. It's honest question, and maybe you were going to tell me or you don't know, but protein in cows, in terms of consumption... High on their list?
Yeah, they definitely get some protein
from grass.
Yeah, there's protein in plants.
Hints.
Yeah, there is definitely.
I know it's in plants, but like I'd never thought of grass. I don't eat a lot of grass.
I think cows would be very poor off if they had a zero protein diet.
I suppose all mammals would be.
We need some protein.
Yeah,
we need some protein, and there is actually a little bit of a myth out there that the only protein comes from animals. There is protein in plants. Absolutely.
So more protein in cows means more milky wilky
for these cows. For these cows, they bred cows,
modified cows.
That means more milky wilky. So that's how you can get to the 100%. Now, I love this. I'm going to quote throughout this from a couple of different sources. One of them is
the Bible.
Close to. It's a government inquiry that came out after what did we say before? Before things stopped being good.
Before then.
So I'm going to get a bunch of things from this inquiry.
Yeah.
And it says here, now, although soya-derived protein may seem the more natural option to the layman,
I'm not worried at all right now.
Animal-derived protein produced as great or greater increase in milk yield, and its use provided an outlet for animal waste that would otherwise have had to be disposed of in some other way.
Wait, are they going to make the meat poo-poo?
No, they're not.
Carry on.
They're not doing it.
I don't want to ruin it.
All right, so what is the most common one that was used, meat and bone meal. Because that title was not loved, they shortened it to MBM. But
Oh yeah, I love a bit of MBM.
I
Meat
mean,
and
the
bone meal,
cows,
fuck off.
didn't want to eat the meat and bone, but MBM they were fine with.
Cows love those. They like consonants. They're not fans of vowels. So MBM's good for them.
So I'll just give an explainer of meat and bone meal.
Yes.
Because I went and explored some little bits of the internet that are gross. And
What?
In particular, I went and looked at the rendering industry, and
Oh, that's hideous.
and
that's hideous.
the thing that surprised me, I read a couple of different pages, a couple of different things. The thing that surprised me is very quickly it made it clear this is a messy business. That like a government inquiry was like,
Yeah.
rendering is messy. Don't be expecting anything but messy. Like,
Yeah, if you're not throwing up from page 1, then you actually should see a psychiatrist.
you know what I actually thought about? I thought about this, and you know there's the nose to tail eating philosophy,
Yeah.
and there's the you shouldn't eat it unless you've killed it. And for me,
That's going to be a problem for me.
well, no, look, I've thought about that, and I've thought I don't have a huge problem in the killing part of it, but you know what? That is not even a fraction of the difficulty of the slaughtering part of it. Like
Oh, no.
the
God, no.
the butchering and pulling apart an animal.
Yeah, it's messed up.
It is
It's
not
messed
great.
up.
It is not great.
If you weren't sure if you wanted to be a vegetarian, just watch a fairly standard industrial abattoir for, I'm going to say, 8 seconds.
yeah.
That would
So
do.
so this government inquiry report that I'll
Rendering is
I'll give you the
freaking
title
hideous.
of later.
Rendering is the most brutal endpoint you can do. Like, how can we just distill the essence of creature into stuff? Am I right? I mean, that's my impression of rendering.
The rendering process involved the crushing and heating of raw materials supplied from slaughterhouses
Raw
to make
materials.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you got it. You got it. That's
yeah, like-
that's the rendering. It's the end process once you go from animal in one end and you take out gradually the bits that are more valued.
Yeah.
To getting to a place where you're still trying to extract value, if you're being economic about it,
Well.
from the other bits. And I love, they also use really old words because it's a very old process, obviously. So the rendering process in particular leads to the evaporation of moisture in the material, which then enabled the fat, known as tallow, to be separated from the remaining high-protein solids, known as greaves. And I think anyone that in their job says, I'm separating the tallow from the greaves, it
I
sounds...
feel like they're probably a playwright.
it sounds really viscous. You're right in the material. Like...
As soon as, where do you work? A rendering plant. Okay, I got to go and talk to anyone else. There's a child murderer over there, and I think they'd distress me less.
Or, listener,
they don't,
if you work in a rendering plant, then
I'm sorry. I hope we can help you find another job.
we salute you and recognise the...
Oh, it'd be horrible. No, I don't judge the person who works there, because you don't work there because you're like, I'm just finishing high school, and the career counsellor says, "What are you into?" And you're like, I fucking want to render
It's
stuff.
rendering.
Like, I want to see what's left of an animal after everything has been stripped away: the leather, the meat, the horns, the wacky kind of products that make your dick hard.
Like eyeballs.
Yeah.
Like after
Everything.
eyeballs are gone, I just want...
what's left. I just want some hooves, bits of bone no one cares about, maybe an internal organ.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I want to get involved in. No one ever has done that.
Hey, flip it around. Of course, nose to tail world says if we are eating meat,
Yeah,
then the justice of using every single bit of it is...
No, I have, and you can quote me on this, no beef with that. My problem is, my suggestion is that anyone who works in a rendering plant did not say, that's where I want to end up.
No careers counsellor has ever,
Yeah.
no person who has stepped and said, I might go talk to the careers counsellor, has ever had the advice, go and work
I
in
was
a rendering.
thinking, all I do is donate bodily fluids for science.
It did come up, like in one of the pages, as well as messy. There's a bunch of dirty and disgusting jobs. Rendering is...
The smell is supposed to be horrific too.
Yeah. The picture that came on Wikipedia of rendering was of a whale being rendered. And this is one of the things that surprised me. I read Moby Dick last year. One of the things that surprised me most is they eventually peel... I didn't mean to do this, but they eventually peel a whale a little bit like an orange. Like, so they
That's
start...
a mandarin.
Yeah, it's a mandarin, I know.
So
But
your
they start somewhere
analogy's
and they sort of unwrap the outer skin and
they
sort of
peel
keep
the
going.
whale?
Yeah, they turn it round as they peel off this long giant strip.
Do they have a whale turning machine?
It's in the water. It's half in the water.
Oh, it's still in the water. Okay.
Still in the water.
Yeah,
So it's tied up next to the boat.
Yeah.
And they would peel it round like an orange. And I think
Are
the
you gonna-
idea.
you gonna eat that?
I will in a bit.
Yep. So the idea is to peel the skin off, and you use that
Yep.
for furniture and clothes. Or is that the blubber? The blubber's just under the skin.
No. Actually, that's the blubber. That's the blubber. So the skin and blubber comes off.
Highly valued.
Then, if it's a sperm whale, they would pierce the skull and get the oil out of the skull. There's a big oil socket in the skull, and suck that out, and then they'd let the rest rot.
Fuck yeah, they do.
So anyway, this is not about whales.
No.
Okay.
But we digress.
Blah blah blah
Back
blah
to
blah.
cows, yeah.
So the resultant protein-rich meal was ground up. So they get all of the last bits of meat off a cow, often using this mechanically removed thing. Like they would blast the carcass free of meat, and the scrapings on the floor, all of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then they would do pressing, centrifuging, using solvents.
Solvents?
Yeah, they use chemicals to dissolve the fats and things like that. And then the resultant protein-rich meal was then ground into meat and bone meal. Now, it's typically about half protein, 48 to 52% protein.
That's a lot.
Guess what the next ingredient is? Obviously bone, but you know,
Lecithin.
30 to 35% ash.
Oh. Yeah, honestly, if you give me 9,000 guesses, that was none of them.
Me too. When I was reading, if any product is 35% ash, that's not a real product.
Not for food.
No.
Would you like to try some? I really would not.
I can imagine a high-class restaurant going,
Right.
he's
48% protein. What's next? I cannot tell you, monsieur. That's a house secret.
I feel like this person is smoking camels
taps the
tapping the cigar on here. 12% fat and 4% water. Now,
Ash.
in the 1980s, meat and bone meal had good commercial value, which basically means the cost of extracting it is less than what you can get for selling it.
Worthwhile.
Now, it might surprise you, but up until the 1980s, the rendering industry was virtually unregulated in terms of quality control and production methods.
In England still?
In England.
Yeah,
This is all in England. This whole story is in the United Kingdom. It's so pretty much unregulated. Do what you like to the end of a cow.
Well, look, how much harm can you do?
But then in the 1980s, Thatcher came in and wanted to deregulate everything. And how do you deregulate something that's already unregulated?
You make it even worse?
You make it even worse. Not quite. No, they did come in with what you might call non-regulations. So they said to ensure the microbiological safety of processed protein, they said that the best way to do this was test it at the very end instead of describing procedures. Do what you want, but we'll test it at the very end. Now, here's the thing.
Okay.
For microbiology, we'll come back to that later. It's a really interesting point. Now, anyway, small quantities of animal byproducts had been used in animal feed, cow feed, since the beginning of the 20th century. So they've been doing this for 50 years in little bits. But after the war, things picked up.
Okay.
Most farmers were well aware of the practice and had no problem with it. But yeah, it really began to grow in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And then some problems emerged.
I can't imagine how.
It probably started with a single diseased cow. Of course, we'll never know when, but it's assumed to be sort of like the 1970s somewhere.
What was the cow's name?
No, we don't know.
Daisy.
Of course. Yeah, all cows are Daisy.
Or Buttercup.
We also don't know where, but the west country of England is thought to be likely. You can see why.
Sure, yeah.
It's possible the disease emerged as a spontaneous genetic mutation. It could possibly have come from sheep. There's a couple of other possibilities as well, but we don't really know where it really came from.
Okay.
But we know that here's the interesting thing. Because this disease I'm about to tell you about had a long incubation period, and in fact, an incubation period that's longer than the life cycle of most beef cattle.
I just realised what this is.
You
I will
did?
say nothing.
I thought you said you realised it before.
No, I'm not clever. Friday afternoon in our town, I'm not clever.
And it was not as long as a dairy cattle's life, but dairy cow. But it was a long enough incubation period that people didn't necessarily know.
That's long.
First suspicions came from a farm in Sussex in December 1984.
It's pronounced Sussex, but carry on. You didn't know that?
So a number of cows have been struck down with they're doing weird things. So they've got abnormal gait.
Writing, dancing,
No.
driving cars.
Yeah, not successfully.
No.
They're walking weird.
Yeah.
Changes in behavior, tremors, hyper responsive to certain stimuli. So something happens and they get they're jazzed up.
Yeah.
The lack of muscle control in the animal's legs, poor balance, poor coordination, behavioral changes, aggression, things like that. There would be a few other things that they might notice sometimes: pacing, rubbing, licking, more than they would do.
Couldn't
otherwise.
tell their left shoe from their right shoe, so they put them on the wrong sides.
It pretty quickly got a colloquial name: mad cow. Cow looks mad. It's doing
Sounds crazy.
mad things. It's a pretty descriptive label. It's a cow,
Yeah.
and it's mad.
It's gone mad.
It's gone mad. Now the first one first heard was in Sussex, and they were misdiagnosed. So
No, it's just a cold. They've got the clumsies.
it's a clumsy cold. It's a clumsy cold. When one of these first cows died, and so the symptoms would get worse over a couple of weeks, maybe a month, and then it would lead to recumbency. I assume that means cow lying down syndrome.
No, that means you
Coma and
lose
death.
your job and get a payout.
Yeah, it does.
I've been made recumbent.
It does, but it's a cow, so I don't know if they
So what was it? So they get paid out from their job, then something, and they die. What was the middle thing?
coma,
Coma.
fall into a coma.
That's not fun.
Here's a picture of one falling into a coma.
That could be any picture of a cow not moving.
It really just looks like a cow sleeping.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
They always sleep
spectacular
on their
about
back with all the legs in the air, don't they?
Initially thought to be a kidney condition. Supposedly, as the government inquiry later noted, the pathology department of a central veterinary laboratory of the State Veterinary Service first investigated the death of a cow in September 1985, but the nature of the disease that had caused its death was marked by other factors and not recognised at the time. This is not a matter for criticism.
No.
This report came with a whole bunch of, it says, this thing happened, but we don't judge it. This thing happened, naughty, naughty. It had nice little reviews all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But by the end of 1986, the pathology department looked at more cases. So there were a couple of cases, one in Kent, one in Bristol, and identified these as, to be a form of transmissible spongiform encephalopathy. Big words, big words. I'll give you the word that it came to be known as eventually: bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Now, you can hear it a little bit if you... actually, the report of this identification says this was commendable. So they gave a good...
The name was commendable?
No, to the scientists that identified this.
Well
They said,
done. Well done, chaps.
So, bovine.
Okay.
Bovine means cow.
Yeah.
Encephalopathy,
Means brain bits.
brain bits. Spongiform.
Squishy brain bits.
Yeah. Spongiform just means looks like a sponge.
Yeah.
Like it really is.
The bits of the brain that look spongy.
So here we go. Bovine spongiform encephalopathy means cow brains that look like sponges. So basically,
It's not the bit of the brain that looks like a sponge. It's the bit of the brain that becomes like a sponge.
becomes like a sponge.
Okay.
So you cut a cow brain up on autopsy, and you start noticing a whole bunch of holes in it, like a sponge.
Fuck no. So it kind of melts it a little bit like...
melts the brain. It's literally melting's not the right word, but it's amazing how this process happens. And it's basically lots of little holes, just like a sponge. Whereas normally you cut through a brain and it looks like it looks like meat. It's pretty consistent sort of thing. But you're getting little holes popping all over the place.
Oh, and I've seen brain. You know, I cut up a human brain.
Did you really?
In second year neuropsych.
Were you
we
thinking,
were sitting in a lab.
This is their love of their life. I'm cutting through
This
it right
used
now.
to be a person.
This is where they played Tetris.
It's true. It was seriously the last year they did it at my university. They said, okay, it's our... And I did the 7 to 9 p.m. class for neuropsych. And she was very intense, but she was actually quite lovely. Swedish neuropsych instructor came in with a bucket. And she said, today we are going to look at human brains. And I thought, that sounds fine. Why she got a bucket? And yeah, it was full of human brains.
How did you not think that's a bucket of brains?
Because it never crossed my mind that she would have a bucket of fucking human brains.
What was I looking at something the other day? And
not spongy at all.
No, but it was yes, probably not.
No.
Quite a solid lump. Like a
yeah.
you can see the, what do they call it? The
think meat.
Yeah, no, like the lines and shit like that. Yeah.
Striatum.
Yeah, there you go. I knew you'd know it. But other than that, quite lumpy, like the a clear
Brains are
consistently.
dense.
Yeah.
Like they're very dense, especially if they've been in formaldehyde for a few hours. But yeah, and no sponge. But
I'm assuming though, I saw one the other day, not live. I was on a video I was watching, and it looked like it had been handled by many generations of neuroscience and med students.
Not a
Like
lot left.
it looked, well, it just looked a little bit frayed at the edges.
Tad
Frayed at
worn
the
out.
edges.
Yes. So yeah, spongiform encephalopathy.
Another A-star result here in the inquiry. Mr. Raymond Bradley, head of the pathology department, remarked in a note to colleagues, if the disease turned out to be bovine scrapie, which is the sheep disease that's pretty similar, it would have severe repercussions to the export trade and possibly also for humans.
I see trouble in the wind.
November 1987, the British Ministry of Agriculture accepted that it had a new disease on its hands, and it was spread by the use of meat and bone meal to feed cows. Basically, in this period, they realized that the bovine spongiform encephalopathy, mad cow disease, was spread by the meat and bone meal that they're feeding them. Now, I'm going to tell you how this works. I'll come back to that in a second. So what causes mad cow disease? This is what they discovered afterwards. So there's a couple more years in here of this process rolling out. I'm jumping ahead to let you know what causes it. So it wasn't really understood at the time, but BSE is caused by, mad cow disease is caused by a misfolded protein called a prion. So all of our bodies, or lots of our bodies anyway, made up of proteins. And they're all little folded bits, and if they fold wrong, then you get a prion.
And
now,
prions are bad?
Yeah. Okay. Prion just means well, it's an acronym actually. It's a misfolded protein. So if the normal shape of the protein is that, and then suddenly one of them gets a kink in it in the wrong way, and it misfolds. But here's the wacky thing.
Yeah.
If that misfolded protein then interacts with the regular protein, then it changes the other one. And so you get this.
So prions win.
Prions win. They break the folding of other protein.
Really? So
here's
strong.
the thing.
Okay.
The wacky thing is they get like a cascade. So you get one little protein, prion, sorry. It takes barely any at all. Will hit another protein, turn it into the prion, turn it into the prion, turn it into the prion. So you get this cascade of things.
I didn't know that.
And this is what happens. This is why it goes in the prions replicate by causing other normally folded proteins of the same type to take on the misfolded shape. So it's basically all about shape. There is no chemical agent.
Yeah.
There is no like a virus or a bacteria. Nothing happening here. It's just the initial prion is rekeying the proteins to change shape.
You're the right shape. I'm going to mess you around.
And they make them all change shape. So one has changed shape, then another changes shape, then another. And so basically the bubbles in your brain, like the sponginess, is where a whole cascade of prions
has messed with your
has
proteins.
messed with all of those proteins.
Wow.
I know, it just blows my mind, and it can happen. It can take a while to go through.
Yeah. I'm not used to learning.
There you go.
I have a PhD. I got that years ago. I'm not used to learning. That I did not know that. Wow.
Now, key thing here.
Prions are bastards.
Prions are literal bastards, and I'll come to a story at the very end, and this is the reason I wanted to do this story. I'll tell you at the end, and it was like, oh damn. So
okay, I'm going to listen for the whole episode.
There you go.
You've talked me into it.
So key thing here, prions are not destroyed even if the beef or material containing it is cooked or heat treated under normal conditions or pressures.
They are superheroes.
They are
villains.
They are survivors. Like literally, you can cook, you can squish, you can do a whole bunch of normal things to prions, and they will still be there. Like
Tardigrades and prions and cockroaches.
This is the like we think of viruses or bacteria.
Yeah.
Bacteria will be killed at a certain temperature.
Yeah.
You heat it up like
6 degrees.
It's more than that.
For argument's sake.
It's more than that. But prions won't. Prions are survivors in the sense that they can survive to a much higher temperature.
That's terrifying.
They are far harder to, because they're not kill. It's not even a thing.
No.
It's just a misfolding.
So you can't destroy them easily.
Okay.
What about a hammer? If you hit them hard enough, do they?
Really precise?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
I know you know priornologist, but okay, carry on.
In 1987, it was accepted that the new disease that was spreading rapidly around the United Kingdom was due to the use of meat and bone meal to feed cows. Now, it was decided that critically here, first good policy step, diseased animals couldn't be rendered in for meat and bone meal. So don't use those animals.
Well done.
Don't use those animals anymore.
But this is before they knew that prions were indestructible, or they just thought it doesn't seem like a good idea, so we'll just precautionary principle it.
Yes, it is before they knew they were not quite indestructible.
So they just kind of went, maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Yep.
And what you should definitely do is remove the spinal cord of a cow.
Predator style. I get that. Yep.
Or
Rip it out.
Mortal Kombat.
Oh, yeah. Sub-Zero does win. Yeah, carry on.
But ignorant of the fact that the rate of infection had escalated to thousands of cases of cows every week, the government gave the animal feed trade a period of grace, some 5 weeks, 5 weeks to clear the existing stocks of feed before the ban took effect.
Down all heavy on you guys.
So they'd said don't use sick cows in meat and bone meal, but you can clear out the stocks you've got.
Oh, yeah. You let them eat whatever's left.
Whatever's left, and also farmers also used up the stocks in there. So this meant even after they put a ban in place, there were many weeks when more food went out there. And
for Christ's sake, I mean the parallels in
so we've discovered that there's a poison, but you can eat up the rest of your poison.
You get rid of it. Like, don't waste it.
Like, could you imagine, like Weet-Bix? Here we go. We've discovered that all Weet-Bix is leading to instant cancer.
Yeah.
But if you've got it in your shelf,
you've got a bit left, fucking eat it.
You might as well eat it. Like, what
it's
are you
still food. Oh, that's messed up.
It really is. It just blows my mind. And they started discovering at this time the amount of food it would take, meat and bone meal, to infect another cow.
Huge. Tiny?
Tiny. It's tiny.
You're holding your fingers.
It's peppercorn size. So basically, here's how the disease progressed.
Yeah.
So a sick cow, not necessarily known to be sick, was eventually taken to a slaughterhouse. Maybe some of that food went into the human food supply.
Yeah. And
then the rest was rendered into one of two things. So it's rendered into mechanically removed meat that humans ate, or that then went to be fed to other cows. That then...
How good's cannibalism?
That then spread to other cows.
Yeah.
And that then spread to other cows and other cows and other cows. So it went all through the cow food supply.
Yeah.
And then many of those cows, because beef cattle are slaughtered a lot younger than is necessary to show signs of mad cow disease, went into the human food supply.
Sweet.
It's just maybe nature was telling us something about what cows want to eat. I don't know.
What's the message? Cows don't tend to eat. Watch cows in paddocks. Like, watch them for a while. Check if any of them eat each other.
It might have been.
Yeah, check though. Check and
do the science. Do your own research.
I've read the books. Right. Do cows eat cows? And volumes 1, 2, and 3. All of them say no. They're very short volumes. Cows don't tend to eat cows. Even if a cow drops dead next to another cow and that cow's hungry, they don't go, there's grass around it, or a dead cow.
Well, I want to get to the grass that's underneath that cow.
Yeah, I'm going to eat my way through.
That's the grass down there, so I'll get to that good grass.
That's the juicy, well-fertilized grass. I'm going to eat my way through, my friend Bossy. No, cows don't eat cows.
No.
I'm very confident.
And farmers would be saying, nah, but what you're not understanding here.
Yeah.
No.
Is that your Sussex accent?
I was thinking of a Sussex accent. It was.
I don't believe cows eat cows, but I don't care.
I used to be way better at that one, but anyway.
It's not Russian. It's not your skill set. Russian's your thing.
Like many a time ago.
Yeah.
Shit started getting weird in 1990 because
it really did.
In May of that year, a cat started doing something strange. I'll turn to the New Scientist article of the time. A Siamese cat living in Bristol showed symptoms of a nervous disease in January this year. It had trouble coordinating its limbs, but showed none of the aggressive nervous characteristic of cows with mad cow disease.
Did it moo?
No, it was happy but drunk.
It sounds fun. It's not a disease. That's recreation. That's different.
The cat, sadly, spoiler alert, the cat did not survive this whole process.
Yeah, it's cat. It's a cat. It's not a dog. No one cares.
It did not respond to treatment for more common nervous disorders, such as a brain tumour or a thyroid disorder, and it was referred to the Bristol Veterinary School for further investigation.
Okay.
Treatment there also failed, and the cat was put down. Now, examination of the brain tissue in an autopsy of the cat showed the same spongy brain.
That's not scary at all.
It's and here's the thing. Now, they did say, look, postmortems on pets are rare. People don't do. Owners tend to not like the idea.
I do my own. Every dog we've lost, I do my own.
Don't. No, but you can understand.
No, of course you don't. No, of course you
like
don't.
for a dairy farm, you've got 1,000 cows.
Can you imagine that? Every cow, I want a post-mortem.
No, but if a cow dies weird, I can understand them going, all right, we need to know what's going on there.
We're going to CSI this.
And you can also understand the government going, okay, that's a key thing that we need to know. But pets, it's
Sure.
like a pet,
As a rule, no.
dies weird. It doesn't necessarily. So owners don't like the idea, but owners have to pay for it. Whereas I think the government will pay for autopsies of weird cow deaths.
I like because they're part of the industry of the foods.
I think so. I think so.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
So there could have been cats before this,
Right.
but this was really weird. The first case of mad cat disease.
I did not know it was a cat. That's interesting.
And so the British Veterinary Association weighed in, saying that an epidemic of demented pets was unlikely. It could simply be a peculiarity of that one cat's brain.
I also already
said
have,
John
I
Bauer.
have demented dogs.
Yeah,
That's
all of them are. Yeah. All of them are. Yeah. But it would be very wrong to be complacent. We must investigate because we've never seen this before in a cat. And look, given this is coming off, a weird time. People are starting to see mad cow disease. It's just cropping up all over the place. And suddenly it turns up in a cat. You'd be like, what the hell?
It's not great.
They didn't know that how the meat and bone meal was spreading everywhere. So I've told you the end result here.
So the cat was eating, we assume, cow, not the cow's feed.
Yeah, the cat was eating cat food.
Yeah.
But the cat food included rendered beef.
Yeah.
So that had come from a cow with mad cow disease.
Yeah.
The government needed to do something. Because this idea that it could cross the species barrier was like, people are like, what? This is worrying. Actually, more cats were diagnosed afterwards as well. Now, so the government need to do something. So first thing they wanted to do, they believed at this time, and I think not quite in fairness to them, but with fairly decent rationale, they thought that British beef was still safe.
Yeah.
So they put out some press releases, 2 of them, saying unequivocally that it was safe to eat beef.
Unequivocally.
Unequivocally.
There's a strong word.
But that wasn't enough. So here's where we get back to Cordelia Gummer. So in May 1990, the Agriculture Minister, John Gummer.
Oh, that's who she is. Carry on. I've just realised.
Took his 4-year-old daughter to an agricultural show. Now, it's said in the inquiry that perhaps he was led astray by journalists. They goaded him.
Well, we all
a bit.
have been, though. That's fair.
I know, but
Okay,
I think that might have been a moment where the inquiry was giving him an out. But he's in a shitty situation.
Sure.
Potentially, you can imagine a journalist saying, "Hey, is it safe to eat? Safe to eat beef?
Prove it.
Prove it." And so he bought beef burgers for himself and his daughter, and it's a very famous photo. I'll put it up on the Twitter thread afterwards.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What year was that? Do you remember?
1990.
90. Okay.
So that's why she is whatever that makes now.
She's wee.
Yeah.
She's a little girl.
So she was 4 years old at the time. So she's 35 now.
Yeah.
From the Daily Express newspaper.
Did he eat it too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
On the Daily Express.
Both John Gummer and his 4-year-old daughter Cordelia at the time. The little girl takes one hesitant nibble and then turns away disdainfully. Did I say they were beef burgers? I think I said
you did. You did say that, yeah.
And then turns away disdainfully. So apparently she didn't eat very much, but she did eat some. There's definitely pictures. He went and had good old big bites of his burger. It's absolutely delicious, exclaims her dad. But she's having none of it. Well, good on her. Yeah. But
tasting
also
good doesn't mean not poisonous.
No, yeah, indeed. But also remember, a 4-year-old is very hard to eat particular things.
I want you to eat that now. Well, then I don't want to.
That is what I don't want to eat.
I have now decided if you want me to do it, I will not.
But this is for a press conference, darling.
Okay, now I really won't. Yeah, great.
It was run all over the evening news.
Yeah, that was huge. That was huge.
Was
globally
it?
huge.
Was it?
Yeah.
So, did you see it? Or?
Yeah, I did. I'll tell you a story later about that. Yeah, it was huge.
I just.
But so I wasn't 10 then. See, like you were very little, whereas I was a grown up already.
Oh,
in 1990, you were like 3.
No, I was 10. I was 10 in the first half of 1990 and 11 in the second half.
Okay, so when that was happening, 99 was like 22 or something, and I was like,
I was more worried about the Soviet Union at the time.
I worried about all of it. I'm very good at that. I can worry.
But as a photo, it's certainly a demonstration. I get John Gummer demonstrating British beef is safe by eating it himself.
Yeah.
But then suddenly going, oh, here's my 4-year-old daughter. And,
Eat this.
What do you do? Oh, she's a vegetarian? Or what's he at? Oh, she's just picky.
She's got dysentery.
Maybe he just couldn't think of it. I don't want to be too condemnatory of him.
But, well, you don't have to. You look that shit up. It went off and it went around the world and it was talked about.
So this is why I said I'm with her.
Yeah.
Like what is for her to say? Like people have asked her about this for 20 years.
Yeah.
Is your brain turning into sponges, miss? Is your brain like?
Are you
off.
stupid? Yeah.
Or do you hate your dad? Do you hate your dad for making you do that? Like,
she didn't get sick though, did she? Oh, you can tell me later. Okay,
I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
But look,
I honestly don't know, because the interesting thing about this for me is also I remember that photo. I remember that whole furore, but I'd never thought about what happened to Cordelia. I didn't know that was her name even. Carry on.
I'll show you a headline. I'll show you a headline later. And it's just like, holy shit, the UK press is so brutal.
They're really good. They're really good. Murdoch, not even in there. Oh, hang on.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Murdoch is definitely in there. Regardless of this, cases of mad cow continue to grow.
Yeah.
By 1993, it was 3 cows in every 1,000. And so I can't remember how I said before, millions and millions of cows, but definitely 100,000 cows were shown to be affected. And so in an attempt to stop the spread of this disease, something like 4.4 million cattle were slaughtered during the outbreak. And I remember, this is strangely how it came to me. My family in the UK are dairy farmers, and they come from dairy farmers. So not like they were dairy farmers at the time, but they were historically of dairy farmers. And I remember the footage of the burning piles of cows. Yeah. And just the horror.
Yeah.
Just the horror.
Oh, it was cowpocalypse over there. It was insane. Just insane.
You think 4 point, there's so many, and each cow is big. Like, they're big things. And just such a horrible, and each of them.
It was also then the bulldozing of the remains afterwards and stuff. Like, it wasn't pretty.
But as a livelihood and an investment and a thinking about something that you care for, and suddenly a farmer being told, no, you have to destroy all of them, and it just must have been horrible, so traumatic. And yet they didn't know at the time, listener, that worse things were to come. So 1993, the chief medical officer repeated the 1990 assurance that beef was safe. But so by 1994, they're starting to understand the whole prion thing and how it's working. How the meat and bone meal is spreading the disease, and how there are some problems in the enforcement processes in slaughterhouses.
Just a little.
Shit got bad in 1995. We'll go to the Independent here. Stephen Churchill's parents realise now that the car crash was the first sign.
Big first sign.
It was about August. He was simply driving near home in his mum's Ford Fiesta, and he went across the white line, head on into an oncoming army truck, says Dave Churchill, Stephen's father. The car was a write-off. Stephen couldn't explain what had happened, nor could his passenger. Both were lucky to survive. His dad says, long legs and a seat a long way back, which I don't know actually protects you from
long legs are very good in car accidents. I've always said so.
I don't know. But the months after were bad for the family, and the Churchills didn't know why. So pretty soon afterwards, the 18-year-old slipped into a depression, a remote depression. He gave up school. In November, his mother took him out shopping, and they went to a cafe for lunch. They ate a small meal, and then went back to the car. And then she said, "Did you enjoy that?" And Stephen didn't remember it. So they're like, "No."
So it wasn't a good meal?
Not memorable. Doctors said, look, it's depression. They gave him medication. But by December, he was losing his coordination, and he couldn't sign his name.
Yeah,
so
no worries.
Depression plus a whole bunch of wobbling.
Which is not your standard. Depression doesn't tend to make you not able to write.
No,
or
not at all.
remember a meal?
No, not at all. Not at all. So soon after, January 1995, they went to a consultation with a psychiatrist and Stephen was taken to hospital. All of the signs pointed to a thing called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease.
Well pronounced. I thought I was going to have to help you there, and I didn't.
No, I worked on that one since I was about 10. Of all of this story, I remember the burning cows and I remember Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease.
Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease.
Which is yes. If you were to see this in the flesh, this name, it's a very
angular
very
series
angular
of
name.
syllables. Yes.
If you would read it out as a Creutzfeldt-Jakob.
Jacob. Yeah.
But the thing is, here's the thing. Doctors were really reluctant to diagnose because no 18-year-old got Creutzfeldt-Jakob. Creutzfeldt-Jakob, CJD, it's a rare condition at the time. It affected like 60 people in Britain a year, so that's 1 in a million. But usually old people over 55. So it's a brain degeneration that was really quite rare, but they had never, ever seen it in someone that was 18.
Yeah.
And they were like, what the hell?
Did he eat a cat?
Oh, we don't know. We don't know.
I was going to say it's not a no.
February 13, they finally did. His dad recalls frustration. You know, a diagnosis wouldn't have helped Stephen. Like, it wouldn't have changed anything. The prognosis was, we now know, terminal. There is no path backwards on this one.
But
it would have taken away the doubt. Sorry?
Pete Evans with his machine that flashes lights.
Even that.
No, you're fucked, aren't you? You get that, you're like, well, enjoy it.
I'll tell you a story at the end.
Okay.
I'll tell you a story at the end, and it's horrific.
Let's end on a high note.
Prions are bad.
Yeah.
Prions are bad. Early in May, Stephen was released into a care home, a palliative care home, basically.
Oh, God.
His family recreated his own bedroom. They put up his Pamela Anderson posters, his beer bottle collection, all of those things. They were prepared for his inevitable death to take years. Instead, he died two weeks later.
Weeks?
Yeah.
Jesus.
He was the first and the youngest Briton to die of what they now call variant CJD. So
Yep.
2 other deaths occurred that year, similar sorts of symptoms. The UK government, until September 1995, concluded there was insufficient evidence to link BSE and Creutzfeldt-Jakob.
We don't want to get carried away.
Don't want to get. They said, look, there's similar, but there's no evidence pointing at this. But all right. In November 1995, some agricultural scientists from the Department of Agriculture said they'd be doing some spot checks on abattoirs, and they found that the whole thing about you have to remove the spinal column.
Oh yeah.
Hadn't been
More a guideline than a rule.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like do it if you feel like it.
Cool.
But
if you're feeling spinal column remove-ish,
yeah,
get into it. But otherwise, whatever.
Problem is, a whole lot of the prions live in brain tissue and spinal columns.
Yes, they do.
And so they found a whole bunch of places that meat that contain bits of spinal cord. So this meant that potentially highly infective material could have been entering the human food chain for 6 years, even after the ban that was designed to prevent it.
Yeah.
Robert Will, the deputy chair of the one of the commissions, told the inquiry, "I was appalled." So by 1996, there'd been a total of 8 cases of the Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease in young people. And the health secretary, Stephen Dorrell, related the information to Parliament on the same day. Almost immediately, the European Union banned all exports of British beef.
Yeah.
The British government set in new measures. Firstly, it was a selective cull of cattle that had had BSE near them. They stopped selling meat on the bone, and finally, they banned all use of animal protein in cattle. Took them.
You don't rush that one. Why would you?
To date, 117 people have died of the variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease.
Okay.
It's slowed down, so there's graphs around that the peak was in about 2000. Because, as I said before, it takes a few years to really go. So there's a few years afterwards, but deaths are still occurring, and some people, they might be a bit wackadoo. I don't know.
No, but it was in 2000. I mean, given the date. So I was in Switzerland in early 2001 at a conference in Geneva, and it was a great conference. Everything was great. Blah blah blah.
Cool,
blah.
cool.
So the spreads for lunch were really lavish, and it was dole out your own goo, and the CJD was very popular back then. We were very aware of of Mad Cow. And I was just sort of slopping out the food, blah, blah. I had a big meal. It was delicious. There was beef, et cetera, but it didn't say what it was. And I realised that evening when we were drinking beers, they said, oh, yeah, that was a whole bunch of British beef and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what the snapping fuck? And I had a couple of months where I was like, I have no idea whether I've eaten that meat. There was no way to tell for sure.
You ate the meat.
Yeah, but I mean, as in, you know what I mean? Like, I was thinking, Jesus Christ, this is very irresponsible. You normally very precise swish. So I had a personal thing where I thought, I could credibly have been exposed to exactly that shit.
You listener, yeah. I can't give blood.
Because you're in the Englands.
I was in the Englands for more than 6 months in this period.
Still a problem.
Yeah. No, it's never going away. Like there's no change in this scenario. There's no point in which I can give blood into the Australian blood supply because I might have prions in me.
I can't give blood because I don't want to.
That's a different thing.
I'll take it though.
That's a different thing. That's fine.
I'm prepared.
I'm not judging you. I'm just saying.
No, that's crazy.
It does not go away.
20 years later,
there are people that are saying that it's possible that that prions are living in a lot of people who ate British beef in this period, in the 1980s and 1990s, and they could have prions slowly bubbling away.
Are there other ways that these prions could occur? I know you're an expert.
So the what's expected? Prions don't occur a lot naturally.
Right.
But basically, they're a mutation. They're a mutation where a protein gets folded wrong.
Yeah.
And the point is, once they happen, then they can replicate. And so this is why a lot of societies that do a lot of anthropophagy.
We've done that before. It's called eating the peeps.
Yeah.
Peeps eating peeps.
Do suffer from prion-related diseases.
Like the kuru.
Yeah. And I assume kuru is actually pretty related to this.
Yeah, definitely. The shaking diseases and stuff, yes, because you ate meat that, human meat, often brain tissue.
The point is prions stay in the meat food supply.
Even if you boil yourself, they're still there.
Well, that's the thing. You can't get rid of them.
No.
It's
great.
They don't emerge a lot spontaneously, but absolutely when they do, they stay around, and that's the scary.
Which
thing.
is excellent. Yeah.
So there could well be many thousands. I look at the charts, and when I see it peaked in 2000, it has gone down. Like there's not very many people dying in say, it's a couple of people in 2007, a few people in 2011, down to almost zero in 2015,
That's
2016.
Pretty good, really. Because,
it really is.
I mean, the hysteria at the time was strong. Like people were very, very nervous.
I don't doubt it.
I was genuinely nervous.
I remember.
I remember going, fuck me. And in my head, once they told me at the dinner afterwards, was that picture of that girl eating the burger, and I thought, I've just become her. I'm
her. I'm a Tory daughter.
I ate the burger.
Yeah. But, maybe there are people that it'll take 30 years to come through. I kind of don't suspect, I don't think it will. I kind of think that,
I think we'd know by now.
I think curves follow a law. Like you don't have something die down to something does die. Second wave. People do talk about second waves, obviously.
Well, sure.
Anne McVeigh, for example,
who played with Fleetwood Mac?
I don't know.
Oh, it was Christy McVeigh. Close enough. Carry on.
Still tortured by the loss of her daughter Claire, aged just 15. And here's the thing: most of them were young. That's the point. It's very crucial.
Then we are safe because we're not young. Carry on.
And that's okay. Yeah. But no, I do worry about the young.
Sure.
Anne writes to politicians every Christmas to remind them of the empty space at her table.
Oh yeah, Merry Christmas, fucks.
Well,
yeah. Okay.
And she feels terrible. Her 15-year-old daughter died, and here's what she says: "I allowed her to eat something that killed her. I think about it all the time." And can you imagine? You know that you fed her that food.
Did she know?
Tommy Goodwin has the words "murdered by greed and corruption" tattooed on his arm.
Not murdered by meat?
No, greed and corruption. He's gone the next level up. It's not just the meat; it's the greed and corruption that caused the. Yeah.
Well, as a vegan myself,
his son Grant died in 2009. Okay.
Nice tattoo though. Is it at least calligraphy or something?
Murdered by greed and corruption.
It's just in blue ink down his groin.
So Look, here's the thing. It's worth looking at some of the findings of the 1997 inquiry. So how much they found the increasing knowledge about mad cow over the years, which threw doubt on the theory that it would behave like Scrapey, was not concealed from the public. The government didn't lie to the public. This is what they reckon.
Okay.
However, the public was not informed of any change in the likelihood of getting mad cow from cows.
Yeah.
So that wasn't good. And the public was repeatedly assured it was safe to eat beef, which is not good.
There was a lot of that.
Yeah.
Even from Australia, that became very apparent. Yeah.
Really?
It was. Yeah. There was a decent sort of propaganda train running, and of course, hindsight made that very clear. But yes, it was pretty clear.
So this is why. And you can imagine many UK people felt really, really, really quite betrayed.
Oh, hell yeah.
20th of March 1996, when it was finally announced by the government that it was transmitted to people. Yep. And look, in fairness, it was only the previous year that the first human deaths had occurred. So they had been dealing with mad cow. The weird thing is they had been dealing with mad cow in herds for a decade.
Yeah.
And then, the crisis of it's all over the place in the early 90s. Suddenly the human deaths emerge in the mid 90s. So
look, I get it. And honestly, I think I'm more sympathetic now because of the COVID life that we're living right now than I would have been before. I have a little bit more sympathy for their approach.
The government.
Yeah.
So here's my feeling is as long as in good faith you're trying your best. I
agree. In good faith is one of my favourite terms in the last few years.
Yeah.
I agree.
If you are literally trying your best, what more can we do? And to expect more from someone than in good faith trying their best is you're an idiot.
We know by definition you can't do better than your best.
That's true.
If you would like that tattoo on your arm next to "Meet and Murder My Child," you go ahead.
You can't do better than your best.
That's just literally true.
No, you don't get an Olympic gold by doing that. No.
That's how I got mine.
What happened in the end? So the inquiry was obviously condemnatory but cautious about the causes. John Gummer, the agriculture minister that fed the burger to his daughter, he went on to become a member of the House of Lords, and he is now Lord Debon. He wasn't a Debon before. That's where they come from.
That's how Lords work.
That's how Lords work. Who knows?
You don't keep your surname.
But yeah, he's the grandee in charge of climate change in the UK.
How's that going for him?
Yeah, they're doing pretty well.
He's still there under BJ.
They're doing much better than us. And there's a funny little twist to that. I'll tell you in a second. Cordelia Gummer, it's not known if she actually ate a lot of beef in that time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably like a UK child, she probably ate the same as many others. But she suffered no ill effects. So
that's good to know.
John Gummer himself has said, "I was prepared for my family to eat it because I believed it to be safe," and I don't doubt he did.
That's as good a reason as any.
Yeah. Who knows what the risks are? So, what do we do with meat and bone meal now? So,
will we put it in cocktails?
What do you reckon? This is how it weirdly connects back to climate change. After the millions of cattle were slaughtered, there was like 500,000 tons of meat and bone meal stockpiled around the UK.
Tons or tons?
I don't know the difference.
Which one was it?
One
has one has an N and an E in it.
But they were stockpiled in secure sheds, which I like.
Because of the meat and bone thieves. Yeah, okay.
They still use it in low-cost dog food and cat food in the United States and Europe. They don't use it in the UK. But in the UK they use it as a fossil fuel replacement.
What?
Yeah. It's got 2/3 the energy value of coal.
So wait. Like, do you want unleaded, diesel,
or cow,
or meat and bone meal?
It's got 2/3 of the energy density of coal, and so there's a couple of power plants, in particular Glanford Power Station.
No way.
Which is running on dead cows.
Burning rendered beef.
Can you imagine the smell of that place?
So they burn it, right? That's the thing. They burn it, turn a turbine, blah, blah, blah.
They burn it and it runs a turbine.
Fuck off, so it burns as well?
It does.
That's wild. burns.
Despite producing
What's your Barbie? Well, we don't have to cook really good meat because the stuff
Jesus
we're burning
Christ.
is kind of meaty anyway. It'll be
it's
fine.
gross.
It'll be
It's
fine.
gross. Despite producing green energy, Glanford Power Station, which is the major one to use the meat and bone meal for this, is listed as the 27th largest arsenic air emitter in England and Wales.
Asshole?
Arsenic's not good.
No, and so it's green because it only burns cattle.
Yeah, it does. It like
No. No.
something is wrong. Something is
what do you- yeah.
wrong with the world, or maybe it's right. I don't know. When you go, okay, let's make cows and then let's burn them for electricity.
After multiple processes to get it there, and then you know what we're going to do? If your power plant, right, does 60 to 80% only cow meat burning instead of coal, you're green. I don't know if that's right, but it doesn't feel right.
Put some solar panels on your roof and let your cows run free.
Yeah. And no, it's not green.
Nose to tail. Earlier this month, July 2021, 5 public research institutions in France have imposed a 3-month, this comes from Science Magazine, 3-month moratorium on the study of prions, a class of folding infectious
A
proteins.
moratorium on the study.
On the study of
So
prions.
don't look into this.
Not quite don't look into this. That cause fatal brain diseases. After a retired lab worker who handled prions in the past
Oh, okay.
was diagnosed with Creutzfeldt-Jakob
Okay,
disease.
that's different to saying we don't want you to know. That's because it's dangerous to do.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not a don't want to know. It's very dangerous. So
Wow.
she contracted the disease on the job, and this will be the second case in France in the past few years. In June 2019, a lab worker named Emily Germain died at the age of 33, 10 years after pricking her thumb during an experiment with prion-infected mice.
Oh, fuck no. So it's not like she smeared meat and bone meal on her sandwiches.
No, she got that they were prion-infected mice, and she
got a drop of blood.
pricked her thumb and got a prion in her, and a 10-year sentence to just sit there.
I'm going on record. I'm not a fan of prions.
I was reading this. The reason I got to this was I saw that news story, and I saw a medical researcher that I follow on Twitter going, "Fuck that! Fuck working with prions. I will work with anything else in the lab, but those fuckers."
Yeah, I work with radioactive spider, AIDS, whatever.
No,
you just do it. Yeah, but
those fuckers are wild. You can hardly destroy them, and one tiny bit will get into your body and work away until your brain turns to sponge.
And it's not in a rush. It will take its time. You think you've escaped, but no.
Here you go. There's the Daily Mail, the Daily Express headline. I said I'd tell you about what became of Cordelia Gummer, the mad cow girl.
Oh, God.
There you go. So
That's nuts. But, I'd forgotten about Mad Cow until you started talking about it. I remember now. I've got a re-emerging of the visceral, having eaten that frickin' buffet. I went, I may have just done the CJD. And from what you've told me, I don't know that I haven't yet.
you don't know that you haven't.
It's been 20 years, but whatever.
Oh, look, there's a moment that your brain, or my brain, or yours, listener,
All yours.
could turn sponges. And it's not nice.
I used to like you, but I've changed my mind. You've made me frightened again.
But you know who you get to blame?
Yeah. Margaret bloody
Thatcher.
Thatcher. Yeah.
Woo!
Fuck Thatcher.